All right, good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are. And thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, and welcome to our session on doc acceptance via Scoir. Before we get started, I do have a few housekeeping items I'd like to take care of. So first of all, I'd like to take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Elliot Rosbach, and I am a product education manager here at Scoir. This means I work on everything as it relates to education and training on the platform, from live sessions like the one we're holding today to our learning management system and our knowledge base, which is essentially like the Scoir encyclopedia, where you can find a breakdown and description of all of our features and workflows within a platform. Now, along with myself, we actually also have a dedicated customer success and product support team. Anytime you have any issue, questions, you need to get in touch with somebody from our team, you'll not only have a dedicated point of contact, but also a fully dedicated tech support team. And I do want to say of our tech support team that they're not only incredibly responsive, but they work directly with both our high school and our college clients. So they're also a really great resource when it comes to the college application process and document sending and delivery. Now, I want to talk a little bit about logistics for today. So please take note of your controls and access to the Q&A. Our team will be fielding questions as they come through, and I will be pausing at times to review some questions and take note of questions and potentially answer them live as well. And then also I wanted just to let you know that the session is being recorded, and we will be following up with some resources for you. So please be on the lookout for those emails that will include the recording. It's also going to include those resources that we have specific for you at the end of the session. So with that, I want to talk a little bit about our goals for today and what we hope to accomplish. You know, the reality is that the college application process is very complex. Many schools, counseling departments, colleges have unique requirements and processes, and it's honestly not our place necessarily to redefine those processes. In fact, it's mostly the inverse. At Scoir, we believe it's important to better understand and work with all of the stakeholders involved in the college application process, and that we can actually build something that makes everybody's lives easier. So with that, our goals for today are really to support you and your schools as you continue to move forward with accepting applications, to better understand, where you're coming from. Also, an attempt to open channels of communication to better facilitate that understanding, which is the first goal. And then we also want to bring more transparency to this process in order to assist in making things easier for everybody involved. So before we jump into some of the topics for today, I was thinking that it would be nice to just take a brief poll. So I'm actually going to set a poll up right now to get a feel for who's actually with us today. So if you wouldn't mind, if you could just let us know what your actual role is at your college. And it looks like the great majority of people here today are admissions ops. That's great. The material for today is definitely geared towards you. It looks like we also have admissions officers, admissions executives, and also some admission reps. So that's really great as well. Although some of this material is going to be, highly geared towards admissions ops, I think that we're excited that you're joining and you want to learn about these processes and the document acceptance process. And also, I think that it's great that you want to expand and get a better understanding of some of the things that that may not be have a direct impact on your role or the work that you do. So really glad to see that everybody has joined and that we have kind of a mix of people as well. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what I plan to cover on today's session. So we're going to start by talking about what is docs acceptance, who's actually involved in the docs acceptance process. We'll talk about the 4 types of docs acceptance that are available via Scoir and give a description of each one and how they work. We'll also talk a little bit about some of the pitfalls or the challenges that you may be facing with docs acceptance. And then we'll talk about some of the strategies and best practices you can employ to overcome some of those challenges that we talk about. We should have some extra time. I do think this session will take roughly 30 minutes, so it's not too long. And then maybe we'll spend about 10 extra minutes going through if people do have extra questions, or if there's questions that get submitted as we continue through the presentation today, we can take a moment and review some of those questions together. All right, so that being said, let's talk a little bit about what is Docs acceptance. So you may currently accept documents from services like Common App, Common Black App, the Coalition, SendEDU, Parchment, or state application systems. Scoir also provides a means of docs transfer. The Scoir system is independent of all the other systems, and it's actually a proprietary technology that we developed in-house. So we've created our own pipeline of document transfer, as it provides us with full oversight of the process and it ensures that we always have full control and the ability to troubleshoot when problems arise. The connection between the high school and your college is actually a direct connection, and that connection is only available to schools currently using Scoir. Now, your college may have already opted to receive docs from Scoir, or you may be asking yourself, why should we receive docs from Scoir? Why should we be accepting docs via the Scoir system? So just to give some background about Scoir and our growth, nearly 1 in 10 schools currently now use Scoir. You can see that we've grown across the entire country and built a network that is nationwide. If you look at our student numbers, you can see that we've been going through this exponential growth. And this actually translates directly into our impact with the schools that we work with. If you want to break down some of the numbers of the students who we work with and the schools that we work with, we're almost 50-50 between public and private. We're definitely growing on the public side more at this time. If you look at the private schools, you can see that 40% of the top 1,000 best college prep schools are now Scoir schools. We understand the term ranking when it comes to educational institutions is very subjective and it's not a great term, but we just wanted you to be aware that the schools that are using Scoir are schools with high graduation rates. These are with schools where students typically pursue higher ed opportunities. So lots of documents being sent from these schools. On the public school side, you can see that 4 out of 10 of the largest school districts in the country now use Scoir. That's going to continue to grow. And we are also in the largest school districts in 7 states, and that's also going to continue to grow. So how does this impact document sending? Well, first of all, if you haven't been contacted by one of our partner schools, there's a good chance that they will be reaching out this fall or that they've reached out over the summer to request that you accept docs from Scoir. The reason for that is that we've really streamlined the process for students and for counselors and administrators at the school to manage the documents and to manage the college application process, regardless of the application that they're using. Also, you can see that over the last year, we sent over 3 million documents. The year before that, it was 1 million. This year, it's going to be much more than that. So this number is going to continue to grow, and we're really excited for the opportunity to partner with you and make this process run as smoothly as possible. So I want to talk a little bit about, for whom is this relevant and who's involved in the doc sending process. Typically, the only members of the team who need to fully understand the docs acceptance process are admissions operations. And so it was great to see that we have so many admissions ops people here with us here today. Now this role may have some different titles, or there may be different subdivisions within the admissions team, but typically the admissions ops are the people who are in control of the documents as they are received by the college. It's also great that other members of the admissions teams are here. We understand sometimes the reasoning for not wanting to create confusion or overcomplicate others' roles. And for that reason, we're not going to be covering material from the perspective, we're only going to be covering material from the perspective of admissions ops today. But if you are from a different division and are interested in learning more, it's great that you've joined, and I do welcome you to stay because I think the information you'll get from today is going to be really valuable. One thing that has come up, and it's great to see again that there's so many reps here, one thing that has come up in the past, and we're hoping to better understand, is whether or not there may be a need for admissions reps to have access to docs within Scoir. This is, the situation where the docs are actually coming through the Scoir system before they've reached your application processing system or your CRM. So in order to get a better understanding of that, I do have another poll here that I'd like to set up. So I do just want to get a feel for, would you actually want admission reps at your school to have access to the docs in Scoir? Okay, interesting. Really, really interesting answers here. Some mostly what we expected, but it is interesting to see that a few people said yes and a few people said not sure. So again, we understand the need for keeping certain processes or workflows under the guidance of a specific team. Although it's interesting to see that some answer that they'd actually like that they would be interested in providing access to reps. So we're going to take that into consideration. We might explore that a little bit further, and we may reach out with some questions to further explore that idea with you. All right, so moving forward, I did want to talk about the 4 different types of docs acceptance that is available within Scoir. The first one is download. We're also going to talk about SFTP. We're going to talk about API. And then we're also going to talk about Slate, which is also sometimes referred to as EasyFTP. So download is what we consider to be the most basic form of docs acceptance within Scoir. When docs are downloaded, this means that a user actually has to manually come into the system, come through the Scoir site and retrieve those documents. When you're using a manual download process, it's also worth pointing out, I think, that when a counselor sends the documents to the school, it's not going to show them that those documents have been processed or received until a member of the team actually goes into our system and manually pulls those documents out. One other thing to mention about the download process is that our documents would be available in nightly batches. So actually, in all cases, our documents are available in nightly batches, but I'm going to point it out for each individual system. Before I move on, I do want to make sure that there aren't any questions about the download process or anything that we can go into further detail on the download process. And it looks like a few questions are coming in. And what I'm going to do is I will circle back to some of them once we get towards the end of the presentation. Okay, the next type of document acceptance that I wanted to talk about today is SFTP. So whereas download can be considered the most basic format for accepting documents via Scoir, SFTP is definitely our most popular. With SFTP, rather than retrieve the documents manually, here we are electronically delivering the file as a zip file to a secure server of your choosing on your school side. You can see some of the setup instructions here. These are actually the real instructions that are coming direct that you would see on the Scoir website if you were to set up an SFTP server. And then the other thing I wanted to point out is why SFTP is so popular. And that's because in most cases, the server's set up using light scripts where those scripts are actually able to process the docs as they're delivered and send them into the application processing system. So not too much coding involved, relatively easy setup. And again, it's definitely the most popular and it's definitely the lightest. Now, again, I did want to stop for a second. If there are any specific questions about SFTP, be sure to type those into the Q&A and we may come back to them towards the end of the session. Okay, the next system that I'd like to talk about is API. So whereas the manual download process is the most basic and SFTP is the most popular, API can be considered the most complex, but it is also the most secure. So with the API integration, essentially 3 separate calls need to be made in order to complete the docs acceptance process. So a little bit more takes place here. And then typically this is set up by a highly skilled team that understands and wants to pull those documents on demand. Now, although these documents are pulled on demand, it should also be understood that the documents are only going to be made available in nightly batches, just like the other systems. So even though the documents can get pulled on demand via API, you will only have access to pull them once they've completed that nightly batching process. Okay, and then the last version of docs acceptance that I wanted to talk about today is the Slate integration. So we also call this easy FTP sometimes. Over 900 schools and colleges use Slate, and so for that reason, it made a lot of sense for us to become a Slate integration partner. So we are a platinum partner with Slate. And the way that partnership works is that we've set up our system to be pre-configured. So all you need to do is actually let us know, really basic information about who you are in order to set the system up. So if you look here, this is actually what the Easy Slate setup looks like from the perspective of an admissions team using Scoir. You can see all you need to do is input your username and potentially your Slate address and test the connection. And then once it's connected, it's ready to go. So out of the box, the import is set up. Again, all you need to tell us is who you are, and we're pretty much ready to go with a standardized import process. And then the other nice thing about Slate is that once those documents are delivered to Slate, you can adjust and create all different workflows that can be integrated for all different types of special needs. Again, with Slate, so just to point out, and it's the same across all of our systems, you'll only be able to access documents via that nightly batch. Now, there were a couple of questions actually that came through that I think I'd like to just review. So there was a question about, once your documents are downloaded, can you access it at a later time in Scoir, or are they gone? We actually store these in the platform, so you can view and download them at any time. There's also a search feature by applicant, and each document that's been received is listed separately for viewing and downloading. So you can always go back and re-download those documents. They don't disappear once you've downloaded the first time. There was also a question about document format. So currently documents will arrive in a batch file for download, typically in a zip format, and will be in PDF format for viewing and processing. And then there was also a question about even if you're scheduling SFTP of your choosing, is overnight the only option? So even with SFTP, and even if you've set up particular scripts that interact with that SFTP integration, the batches will take place overnight. And actually, I do want to give some background on what the reasoning behind that is. So when counselors send their documents to your college, we do, inside the Scoir system, give them the ability to cancel or pull those documents back. So if there ever were a case where a counselor sent a document by accident via Scoir, they actually have the ability to cancel that sent document or pull it back if they need to. So we wanted to give counselors the ability to do that because we all know we're all human, we all make mistakes. So that's the reasoning behind, one of the reasons I should say, behind our nightly batches. Okay, and then there was one other question that I think I'll take before moving on into the kind of challenges and best practices. So there was a question about who uploads the documents into the Scoir system. Is that a high school employee, for example, a counselor? Is it the student? And this person was trying to determine if the documents are official or unofficial. So all of the documents that you receive via Scoir are official school documents. Again, these are documents that are sent directly from the high school to the university. Students actually do not have access to these documents on Scoir. So, a good example would be a letter of rec. Those letters of rec are not shared with the student. Those letters of rec go directly from the Scoir system as they're uploaded by teachers to the college. So typically, the person at the school who is uploading or sending the documents, they may be different people. It might be a counselor, it might be a registrar, but they are uploading official school documents like official school transcripts, letters of recommendation, etc. Actually, all of the documents that are part of the college application process can be managed within Scoir. And then all of those documents are sent directly from the Scoir platform to the college. And again, just to repeat, they are official school documents. All right, so now that we've talked a little bit about the different systems that you potentially have access to, I would like to get a better understanding of, from the group that we have here today, if you are currently processing docs via Scoir, I'd like to get a feel for how you're currently processing the docs. So are you using Slate? Are you using our API integration? Are you using SFTP? Or are you downloading the docs manually? Okay, great. So it looks like the vast majority of people are, well, it looks like it's a split here. A lot of people are Slate. We have a lot of people who are also download, and then we have some people who are also SFTP. So I would say if you put Slate and SFTP, it's almost 50-50 between download and Slate and SFTP. That's really interesting. And again, thank you everybody for your responses. The reason that I actually wanted to ask that question is that a lot of the challenges that we're going to be talking about are actually primarily going to be faced by those who are using SFTP or Slate to process the documents. The reason being that some of the automations or some of the other pieces that exist once those documents are delivered are what cause the challenges. So for download or for API-based schools, I don't believe the issues will be as persistent, but I do think it might be valuable for you to, even if you are a download school, just to walk through some of these things with us, because there are some things that we're working on that may be of value to you or that you might be interested in learning about. All right, so let's talk a little bit about some of the common challenges and the solutions that you may be facing in accepting documents via Scoir. So of the common challenges and solutions, we've identified a few root causes that we'll definitely be talking about, and we'll go into more detail as we go into some specific situations. But basically, what we've been able to identify as some of the biggest issues here are automation, record creation or lack thereof, and then high school behavior. So something that's a little bit obviously outside of the realm of your control as an admissions operations person. But we'll talk about what the action that we're taking there as well, and things that we can do to be proactive. All right, so let's talk about our first challenge. The first challenge I want to talk about is Doctype matching. So this is a situation where documents are delivered, but aren't mapping to your specific requirements. This could be a situation where a school is sending documents that you don't list as required, or that you don't typically accept or even use as a part of your process. As a solution to this, we've really worked, I should say our product team has worked really hard to update all of the supported document types in terms of how they are described and the way that they're listed in our system. And we've gone through great lengths to make sure that this information is easily accessible and documented. So a lot of this information has been updated from previous years, most especially from last year. So a lot of the terminology that was used has been updated, and then the descriptions have also been updated to make things more clear. All of this information, by the way, is located in the Scoir Help Center. So within our help docs or our knowledge base, which I talked about a little bit in the beginning. Again, that's basically like the Scoir encyclopedia. You do have access to the Scoir knowledge base. And just to show you what this looks like, if you were to go to our knowledge base and look for it. So this is what the Scoir knowledge base actually looks like. And you do have access to this. There is a link to it in the bottom right-hand corner of your Scoir account. So there's a Scoir infinity symbol. If you click there, you can access the knowledge base directly from that screen. And this is actually our most recently updated document that talks about the supported document types. So here you can see the document type mapping value, and a lot of these have been updated over the years. And then we've also done a lot of work to update the document description as well. So again, all of this information is available to you. I do highly recommend making use of our knowledge base and coming to here as a resource if you need to. We can also provide this information if anybody would like at the end of the session today. We can send this to you if you need us to. One other thing that we've been talking about from our end, so additional action ways that we could be potentially proactive, is the idea that we may be able to open up sessions where we actually review mapping alongside with you. So if there is interest in this, and feel free to type that in the Q&A if you'd like, a member of our team would potentially be able to work with you and go through the mapping process alongside you to ensure that that mapping process is done in a way that ensures the documents are delivered properly. So again, anybody who's interested in mapping, we would appreciate if you type that in the chat, and we might be able to follow up with you in the near future. Okay, the next challenge that I want to talk about is a challenge where multiple records are created for a single student. So this is a situation where documents may be received prior to an application. And so when the documents are received, a record is created. And then when the application is received, another record is created. So you have two records for a single student. Similarly, another situation that would cause this could be where documents are received with different information from the Scoir system and the actual application that the students are submitting. So an example of that would be, and I've seen this happen in the past, where students using Scoir, they are using their actual names, their legal names from the school, because we are connected to the school SIS. And then when the student applies through an application system, they may use a nickname and not realize that they really should be using their legal name when they are applying to college. And the result of that is, again, two separate records that are created under the same student, for the same student, essentially. The best practice or solution for this process, for this challenge, or for this issue, is exception processing. So exception processing, right? Making sure you're going through and actually conducting exception processing. Also making sure that you are establishing a process where you can go through the records and locate, match, and merge any existing records that come through. Matching them may be based off of different pieces of information, not necessarily just the name, for example. Now, additional action, things that we're doing on our end to try and be proactive here and assist with this. We are currently engaging in information campaigns. We're also engaging in educational programs with students and counselors and families to reinforce, the importance of data consistency when they're applying. And I'm going to actually talk a little bit more detail about exactly what we're doing there when we talk about school behavior. Okay, the next challenge I want to talk about is record creation, as in where record creation is not currently enabled. Just to be, so again, I just want to repeat that, we understand that your processes that you use at your particular university are processes that you've developed, and those processes exist for a specific reason. With that being said, please understand that we're not saying that you have to enable record creation, but one challenge that we've seen, or an issue that can come up, is where documents are received where no prior record actually exists for that particular, let's say, student. And when those documents are received into your system, those documents aren't able to create a new record, and so they're moved immediately into what's called batch acquire within Slate, or an overflow type folder, like a junk kind of folder. So our solution for this is just to make sure that you're regularly reviewing the batch acquire folder within Slate. When documents are unable to create a new record, they will definitely be routed right into that batch acquire folder. So taking regular review of that folder, making sure that you're aware of the documents that are coming into there. Also, we would suggest that you consider allowing incoming documents to create a record, because then they would no longer be moving to the batch acquire. So, you may allow a request for information to create a record. You may allow an application. I'm sure you allow an application to create a record. So one way to keep the batch acquire folder from getting overly filled with documents, one potential way is to consider allowing the incoming documents to actually create a record for that student. Okay, and then the next challenge that I wanted to talk about is missing document messaging and misinformation that can happen as a result of automation. So with the Slate system, it does come with so many customizations that you can build out and so many workflows that you can build into that system. Sometimes when documents are, or when an application is received, and some of these other situations occur where either the student record is not created or the student record doesn't match the student record from the application, right? Those documents then aren't necessarily matching with the application that's been submitted, or a request for information, or whatever that student record is on your system. What that can do is trigger automation workflows for missing documents. So what that means, and I'm sure you're very aware, but what can happen is emails or messages, or even I think physical mail at times, can be sent to students or families, letting them know that documents are missing, even though the college counselor at that school has actually already sent those documents for that student via Scoir as a part of that application. So our solution here, again, is just related to exception processing. So, again, maybe consider allowing incoming docs to create a record, That way, not as many, you can create that record and then run through and conduct exception processing to kind of connect those dots in the automation process. Another really helpful thing, or something that may aid in the reduction of confusion with the process, is just keeping reps informed. So again, that's another reason why we're pretty excited that reps are here today. So, we will provide you with an email template if you would like to use that to share with your reps, just to keep them informed if your school is now using Scoir to process documents. So just making sure that your team members are involved, because again, once those missing documents go through, missing document messages go through, what can happen is, right, it may cause some panic in the students or the families. They're going to go to their college counselor. They may call the rep directly. If that rep is unaware of the Scoir system, or that your school is actually using Scoir to process documents, they may tell the student that they've never heard of Scoir, or that they don't know that any documents were ever sent. And that's just going to cause extra panic and potentially extra stress for the counselors and the students, who are already stressed as a big part of this process. So for that reason, we think information is a really powerful tool that can be used here, most especially with keeping reps informed, especially as you're taking on new processes at your school, and especially with relation to accepting documents via new systems like Scoir. Now, the last challenge, which almost like the elephant in the room, and one of the things that obviously, as an admissions operations person, you don't have control over this particular challenge, is high school behavior, right? So documents being sent, or documents that are received prior to applications being submitted, right? So your counselors sending documents before the student has even let them know that they've actually completed that application to your school. Or the example that we used earlier, where a student might use a different name on their application as what is actually available, as to what their legal name would be that's coming through their SIS. So our solution here is really just preparation. Making sure that you have considered, setting up rules, ways that will allow for you to deal with documents that are coming before the application is actually submitted, or for an application that's submitted after those documents have arrived, and ensuring that there's a match process that can take place there. And then what I wanted to talk about, what we're doing from our end to try and do as much work as possible here to be proactive. Again, we're working with all of our partner high schools on active information campaigns. We're actually running training sessions similar to the one that we're doing today, but running them for our high school partners, running them for students and families, so that they're really aware of the best practices involved in document in the application process, right? Making sure that your application has been submitted before telling your counselor to send those documents. Alternatively, really making sure that students are aware of the importance of data consistency and data cleanliness, and making sure that they are using the same name that's in the SIS when it comes time to actually submit those applications. Now, on top of those educational programs that we're running and information campaigns, we have also started to build out in-app warnings and notifications for students and for counselors. So, really making them aware of, again, the best practices in the process, putting up stop points for them so that they know, make sure that the application is submitted before you make the request for documents, or before you tell your counselor to send those documents. Same thing for the counselors, make sure that those applications have been submitted, or that you get a confirmation from your students before you're actually sending those documents to the college. And again, just reiterating the importance of data consistency and cleanliness, and why that will help with the process overall. And then there is one other thing that we've done that's relatively new, which I think you may be somewhat excited about. We're very excited about it. We've actually added a new feature to the platform. So this is also directly related to an issue, one of the earlier issues that we talked about, right, where you are receiving documents that either you don't need as a part of your process or that aren't really something that you consider as a part of the application process, or that are erroneous or extra documents. So we now allow for application round management right inside Scoir. So what this means is that first, we've actually designated a whole new role. It's called the application round manager. So this is a role within Scoir. It's a new role. It's a specific role to application rounds and document management. This person has the ability to create and edit application rounds and deadlines. This person also has the ability to modify application requirements, specifically document requirements. And then this person also would have the ability to view the Scoir College profile. So if there's somebody on your team, whether that's on the admissions ops team or whether that's on one of the other teams that's involved in the college application process or processing the applications as they come through, this is going to be a role where you definitely want to take advantage of this on the Scoir system. So just to give you a little bit of a preview of what this looks like, when it does come time to set up your application rounds, you can see that you can define exactly what that round will be, when the due date for that round will be. So one thing to consider is that so many of our counselors really do use Scoir as a source of truth about the colleges, just in terms of what when the applications are due and what documents are required as a part of that application. So here you have the ability to actually update, when each of your individual application rounds. We have lots of customization available here. You can update the actual due date for that particular round. You can make them binding if you need to. And then we also allow you to define the documents that you would like to receive as a part of that application. So whether that's, the initial transcript, senior courses, secondary school report, SAT or ACT score reports, fee waivers, FERPA waivers, mid-year final reports, every document that is a part of the college application process, your counselors and students do have the ability to generate and process via Scoir. So here you actually have the ability to take that action and be proactive and define what documents your system will receive. So again, we're hoping that this really does reduce the amount of erroneous or extra documents that you're receiving that are, again, filling up that sort of batch acquire or the overflow folder. Again, because we do want to make this process as smooth as possible for all of our users. And we want to make sure that, that you are receiving the documents that you actually want, and you are receiving the documents that are important to you. And the inverse of that, you're not receiving the documents that, that you don't want. Okay, so I know that was quite a bit of information. It looked like our Q&A was really running pretty quickly as I went through quite a few of these topics. So I think what I'd like to do is actually run through some of the questions that have come through here and see if there's any that we'd like to bring up, considering we have about a few minutes of extra time here. So there was a question about our ability to audit documents. For example, a blurry document that comes through or a document that's incorrectly classified or categorized. Unfortunately, our team doesn't have oversight in that respect to the school documents. Again, these are official school documents. They're coming directly from the school. So it is upon that counselor team, the administration team, the registrar team to upload those documents and ensure that those are the correct documents and that they aren't blurry or smudged or incorrect in any way. There was a question that came through about a cost associated with the Slate Easy SFTP. Is there a cost associated with Slate? There's actually no cost. It's totally free. And then there was another comment that came through about a school that uses Slate, but guidance counselors are sending documents using an SFTP zip file, which means it doesn't go through and it needs to be downloaded manually. I would definitely suggest, and Kelly from our support team also suggested, make sure that your Slate is make sure that your Scoir account and Slate have been configured for the Slate integration. That way, when the counselors send the documents, they'll be going directly through the Slate system, and you shouldn't be facing that type of an issue. Oh, great. So there was also a question that came through about the application rounds. What are the application rounds and what's the role of the application round manager? So just to repeat, the application round is the specific round that you want to allow students to apply to your school. Obviously, that's a decision that gets made, most likely by the executive team, by the admissions team. So, whether your school is offering early action or early decision or early decision 2, or a regular decision round or a rolling admission round. So these are all the different types of admission rounds that currently exist, and they are all currently available to incorporate into your profile within Scoir. And then once you've decided on a particular round, so for example, here we have non-binding early action, then you'll be prompted within the Scoir system, or I should say the application round manager will be prompted in the system to update which documents are required as a part of that round. And again, you can this should be a team decision, but you can indicate to Scoir exactly which documents are required and which aren't required, and that will translate directly to the documents that you receive from counselors. The way that you set this up in Scoir is going to be the way that documents are then delivered to you via the counselors using the system. Okay, and I'm just scrolling through some of the questions here. There was a question about who I can contact for more information on the Slate Easy SFTP. Please feel free to reach out to our support team, and Kelly pointed this out as well. The team can be reached at support@scoir.com. So SUPPORT at scoir.com. Again, I'd like to mention how incredibly responsive and knowledgeable our support team is. They're really great resource that you have access to. And the details for support for that address are also located in the chat. Okay, there was a good question that came through here. Elliot mentioned that Scoir is connected to the high school system, what are the data criteria that Scoir uses to match to our college system besides the student's first name and last name? We use first name, last name, date of birth, and then the SEEB. The SEEB is a field in Slate that must be configured separately, but this will help match data from the high school and the student. We also, by the way, do collect IDs for Common App and Coalition. So if a student is applying to your school via Common App, or if they are applying via Coalition, we do request within the Scoir system that they submit that Common App ID number to us, and we will provide that as a means of helping you match the records. There was a question about evaluation documents for international applicants. We don't currently offer evaluation documents for international applicants. However, high schools do have the option to send any document. So they can upload any document. So they could potentially upload that as an other document and then forward it to your college. Oh, and there was another good question about the assignment of the application round manager role. So if you are having any difficulty in assigning that role, please reach out to our support team. Again, support@scoir.com. We can help you and assist with making sure that that application manager role is available to you, and that you have the ability to assign it to the person that you'd like within your organization. Okay, and I think I'm going to take one more question. So it's just, do you have to reconfigure Slate each year? You do not. You can actually make tweaks if you want and fine tune things. And you can do that, of course, within your Slate system. But once you set it up and Scoir the initial time, you will not have to reconfigure every year. Okay, and that was really everything that I was planning to cover with regard to, the docs acceptance process in Scoir, all of the different acceptance types that we offer, and then some of the different challenges and some of the ways that you can potentially overcome those challenges. I hope that today's session was useful for you. I hope the information was valuable. Again, we have recorded the session, so we will follow up with that recording. We've also got some information for you that we'll follow up with just in regard to admissions ops and the application round management role and things like that. So I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time. We're almost at an hour now, so I really appreciate the fact that people took time out of their day to join us. And we're very excited. If you are a Scoir user, we're super excited. We're so happy to have you. And if you'd like to join and work with us in the near future or accept docs in the near future, we'd be really excited to work with you in that respect as well. So thank you again, everybody, for joining today, and we will be following up shortly.